Hello YouTube and welcome to another video. In this one we've got lots of stuff happening. Not only am I doing more modifications to the X2 hull, but I've got some news about what I'm not doing with the paint. I'm not going to let you guys know exactly what I am doing. We're going to keep that secret. But also I got some parts in. And in a recent video, I asked you guys to send me photos of your jet skis or your jet ski projects, and I had a bit of an overwhelming response to that, so thank you guys for getting involved. In this video, I'm going to be showing you guys some of Ben from Ride Garage's photos. He's got almost as many skis as the Jet Ski Brothers, and so I was gonna put like a couple of people in one video, but this one's going to be dedicated to him. You're going to want to see that because he has some interesting stuff. And yeah, he's actually had some skis that I've never seen before. I've seen pictures of before. But anyway, stay tuned for that. At the end of this video, I actually said that I didn't do this, but that's because this is being shot the next day. I decided to release the video a little bit late and go ahead and do this. I got done filming last night at about midnight, so yeah. Anyway, enjoy the video. Alright YouTube, I just filmed a little video and I'm not sure if you guys are going to see any of it because basically it was me receiving my welder back and just being really angry. I'm not sure if the welder is going to work better. I'm going to have to give it a good thorough test, but they didn't return my regulator, and it doesn't look like they bothered to test the gas hose that I sent back. At least one of the issues that I was having was gone, but I'm going to have to really give it a good workout to test it. The project that I'm working on for the Jet Ski Brothers will give it a good testing. So yeah, you guys will see some of that once I make some progress. Right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark out some of these spots and basically show you guys how I figure out what size to cut my material. Yeah, basically in order to make it easy to see, what I usually do is make a circle around the repair patch area. You put it over like that. You don't necessarily need the red mark there. It just makes it easier. And I'll mark this one and this one because I've got a whole lot of these to do and I don't want to get them mixed up. Even though I'm not a fiberglass expert, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a lesson on how to repair a hole properly. You can see we have two different scenarios here. We have one where I've patched from the back side already last year, and we have this one where it's open and so I can repair it from both sides. This is ideal if you can get at it from both sides and put fiberglass on it and do what they call a wet layup, which basically means that I put the glass on here and before it has cured I put some on here. So I'm just going to put them on at the same time in this case. But as long as you do it before the back stuff fully cures, you get a chemical bond. I put this stuff on last year and it's already fully cured. The only thing that you can get is a mechanical bond, so you're depending on the grip of the epoxy or how it adheres to the surface. That's why it's very important that you sand it down with a very rough sandpaper. Anyway, the difference between these two holes, this one doesn't go all the way through, this one does, and I can get to the back of it. So the rule of thumb for this is 12:1 ratio taper. The line here that I marked is the outside of the taper. So the material here is about 1/8 of an inch thick. So I'm not good at math, so I'm going to use my calculator. So 1/8 is 0.125 times 12 is 1.5 inches. So with this, where there's a hole all the way through and I can patch it from both sides, the proper amount is 1.5 inches. And kind of by a fluke, I ended up at 1.5. I'm just kind of eyeballing this. If the hole goes all the way through, you're supposed to figure out a way to patch it from the back side. But you can't always get at the back side of it, and in this case I'm not going to cut away the old repair material. just to make a new patch. So the 12:1 ratio, basically you've got your material, and in my case I can get at it from both sides, so I can taper it from both sides. So I have it tapered down. The hole is here, and the distance between the edge and here is 1.5 inches in my case. But for this same repair, if I can't get at the back side of it, so in this case we have the material and I've already filled it in from the back side, so now I'm just getting at it from this side. This taper should be about 18:1. That's the worst writing ever. That taper should be 18:1. So that means the taper on this, according to what I'm telling you, is definitely not enough, because 0.125 times 18 is 2.25 or 2¼ inches. So from the edge of here, from the center of there, I should be tapered all the way out to here, basically, which would mean my circle would go all the way around here. So those are the rules of thumb for repairing a patch area. If you can get to the back side of it and lay up your fiberglass at the same time, both sides at the same time, 12:1 ratio, so whatever the thickness of the material is, you taper back 12 times that amount. If you can't get at the back side of it and you're only repairing it from one side, your taper should be 18:1 or higher. Of course, the more structural the repair is, or the more strength you need out of the repair, the more important that is. And the less structural it is, or if it's just cosmetic, then you don't need to go completely crazy with that. But basically the reason why they do that, or the reason why they recommend that, is because the surface area that you're using to bond to is what is going to give you the strength of the repair. If I only tapered out a small amount, then the grip or the bond from the epoxy would just be a tiny little area. But if I taper way out wide, then I have all of that surface area holding the patch in place. Here's another little tip for you guys. You're going to want to know how many layers of material you need to fill that in. So you're going to want to know how many circles of fiberglass cloth you need to cut out in order to fill in that hole. So what you can do is take a straight edge, something like this, put it across the hole, and then measure the distance. I'm going to say that. So that's 140. And from the thickness of your cloth, you can figure out how many layers that you actually need to fill your hole. Okay, so you guys can probably guess what this is. This is what they call front fill. Pointed the right direction. BJ wanted one for his X2 as well. That looks like a nice quality piece. It kind of looks like maybe it sat uncured for a while though. It's got a low spot there. Put that over there. That is exciting stuff. I supposedly have a couple other things in here. I've got some ODI grips, the Ruffians, and I've got this sweet PJS lever. That's pretty neat. They have a little roller built in there for the cable to roll on. Whatever position you put the cable in, if you need a different amount of pull ratio, you can change the position of that, and so there we go. Beautiful. That's a nice piece. Okay, I'm gonna set this stuff aside and continue cutting fiberglass. BJ sent me a message earlier with a listing on a local site where somebody is selling an X2, so if it's cheap enough, I'll pick it up, but yeah, I don't have as good a luck as BJ, so it'll probably end up being no deal. Okay, so this is the mess that I'm working with. I've got the fiberglass cloth cut out for the front piece that I'm doing. So I've basically staggered or alternated the stacks of cloth. So I have the woven roving, fairly thin stuff, and then chop strand, and then woven roving, chop strand, woven roving. So we got the 1, 2, and the 2 inside patches, and then the patches for the pissers, and 3 is for the lower. This is for the bilge pump on the lower side, and you can see that those are all chop strand. And then over here, those are some pieces that I cut out for this repair. And you can see that they're all made out of either cloth or the woven roving. And the reason why I did that is because it has to fit into this contour. And if I used the chop strand mat, even though it would be strong, it wouldn't actually go into that groove. So I would have a huge air pocket down in that corner. If you have to lay cloth down in a place where there's going to be a lot of contours, you're better off to use this stuff, either a biaxial cloth, a twill, or a woven roving. The woven roving will lay good in one direction. So if you wanted to lay it over this corner and then over this corner, that's fine. But if I wanted to put some here and have it go over this corner, and then also up here, it wouldn't do that very well. So you need to have the either biaxial or twill to do that well. Oh my goodness, I am so tired. After many, many more hours of sanding and cutting out cloth, I decided to go back to the bow eye. Most of the stuff that I'm doing right now, I don't want to make a video on because I don't think that it's very interesting. Just tons and tons of sanding and cutting away material. You guys have responded quite eagerly to my offer to post your stories and photos on my channel. So in the next few videos, I will be talking about some of the viewers' jet skis and showing you guys some of the pictures that they sent me. This is Ben's 89 X2, which is totally stock except for a turf kit. He picked it up last year mid-season, and it's in amazing condition. I am quite jealous of it. He says that it was stored away for about 15 years in a storage unit when he picked it up. And yeah, as you guys can see from the photos, it is in amazing condition. Those handlebars are a little bit goofy, but that's what the X2 came with, and a lot of the purists like to keep them on there. The next photo that he sent me was of his Superjet, which is 100% stock except for handlebars and the steering pole. I've never actually ridden one of these. I hear lots of people rave about them, and the 701, I am quite aware that it is a very dependable engine as well as fairly strong for the size of it. And yeah, a lot of people love these skis and swear by them. I guess there's the Kawasaki crew and the Yamaha crew, and yeah, they like to fight with each other. I haven't actually tried one, so I can't really chime in on that, but I'm imagining that any Yamaha product is pretty good. Next up, we have 2 wave jammers. How lucky is this guy? This is the sign of a true jet ski fan, or a true watercraft fan, when you have not only this many jet skis, but when you have 2 wave jammers. I believe he picked them up late last season, or just recently. I'm trying to skim through the reading here and keep this flowing. But yeah, 500cc engines, they are pretty gutless. I've ridden one, BJ has one of these, and I've actually ridden them quite a few years ago when I used to work for Yamaha. and these things are amazingly fun. It's proof that you don't need a whole lot of horsepower to have a lot of fun, especially if you have two people out on these at the same time. The next picture that he sent me is just about as far of a contrast as you can get from the Wave Jammers. This is his Honda F15X, or two of his F15Xs. And yeah, he's telling me that they're fast, and I don't doubt it. They have a 1.5 liter 4-cylinder turbocharged engine. It says that they go about 65 miles an hour, which seems about right. These things are big couches, and if you want to cover a lot of distance on the water, this is a nice way to go about doing it. Next up, we have a picture of his dad's 95 SP and SPI. And I remember riding these things when they first came out. Quite a few years back, I was working at a Yamaha dealership, and for some reason we ended up working on a few Sea-Doos, and I got to take them out and test them. And it's long enough now, I think I've reached the statute of limitations, so I can tell you guys how much fun I had on them. I remember that you could spin them around backwards at full speed, and if you did it and leaned back a little bit, you could get almost the whole jet ski, or the Sea-Doo, to go completely underwater. Basically, when you spun around, you would stay on the throttle and kind of lean back, and it would start doing a wheelie, but you had so much rearward momentum that even the handlebars would go underwater. So it would start doing a wheelie, but the whole thing would go down underwater. And yeah, I remember them being incredible fun. The next picture that he sent me is of one of the strangest things that Kawasaki ever made. I've never actually seen one of these in person. I've seen photos of them and videos of them, and when you're doing parts search for Kawasaki X2s, it always pops up, you know, jet made as one of the options, because this actually shares the same 650 engine that the X2 and the SX had in it, and a couple other skis, I guess, as well. This thing is actually steered by a joystick, and that makes it quite strange. I don't know of any other watercraft that do that. This one apparently has a bit of a strange backstory as well. These were never sold in North America, as far as what I understand. This was imported and apparently can be seen on the show Baywatch. You can see it says Baywatch on the side of it there, and apparently was used by David Hasselhoff in that show. Yeah, this is his dad's Jetmate, not his, but he was nice enough to send a photo of that along. It looks to be in immaculate shape. That's going to do it for this edition of Show and Tell. You guys be sure to let me know what you think of this in the comments section, and also head over to Ride Garage and say hi to Ben. Tell him that I sent you over. Yeah, let's get back into this video. The way that I'm going to install this front fill isn't the way that most people install them. The way that they're intended to be installed, or the way that most people install them, is to use a ratchet strap and a few blocks of wood, and you basically pull the thing down into shape, and then they drill a few holes in it, and they will actually squirt glue in, and then you basically finish it off with fiberglass. I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to cut away a lot of this bad material. For one, I don't want the extra weight. I'm going to shave off the extra weight. For two, it's going to give me a little bit more room inside of the hull. And yeah, I want to do it that way, so I'm going to do it that way. I'm pretty sure that this isn't going to fit well, and some of you will probably be like, that must be for a different jet ski. And I wouldn't blame you for thinking that, but like I was saying, what most people actually do is they just get a ratchet strap and some blocks of wood. They put blocks of wood in the channels, and then they ratchet strap it down, and yeah, that's how they fit it in place. I just got done a brake job on a Kia, Megan's sister's SUV. And now I'm going to tackle this. I'm going to mark out the general area where the ribs are because I don't want to cut the ribs out, or at least I don't want to cut them out right away. So I'm going to try to kind of eyeball it a little bit and figure out where they are. There's one right here that goes from here right across to the back of the other hole. So basically like that. So all this material is going to get cut out. All that work that I did last year. I'm suffering from allergies today, which means it's really miserable to wear a mask. But I'm going to have to wear a mask to do this. Don't need it. You can see what they did here is they laid what almost looks like drywall fiberglass mesh. They just used a whole bunch of polyester resin. So there's not actually any fiberglass mat in here. What they did is they built up this repair area over the top of the surface instead of chamfering the edges in. And so in order to get the shape or to taper it in, what they did is they had to use all this area to taper it in. So this area isn't actually damaged. The reason why there's polyester fill here is because they had to smoothen out this transition because they just made a giant lump on top. Yeah, I'm gonna cut out a bunch of this stuff because it's gonna get cut out anyway, and it'll be fun for you guys to watch. There's literally not going to be anything left. There's just going to be a bunch of little bits of fiberglass. the end of my last video, I had told you guys that I had picked out my paint colors and that I was ready to order everything and that I just hadn't pulled the trigger on it. Well, I have since then decided that I'm actually going to do something quite different. It's going to be very exciting. Part of the reason why I changed my mind from doing the paint is because it was extraordinarily expensive. I didn't need a lot of paint, but I wanted to use good quality paint and I wanted to use a few different colors. So it ended up, it was going to be about $450 American plus shipping, and then there would have been duties and taxes and everything on top of that. And so because of that, I decided to go with another option, which I'm not going to tell you guys about. You're just going to have to wait, and you're going to be very excited about it when you actually see what I'm doing. The front fill is looking good-ish. I think I've already told you guys this, but what most people do with these is strap them down into place with some blocks of wood, and then they put some glue in there. A lot of people will drill holes through them and then glue them to the hull without cutting any material away from the hull. They just put this on top, they strap it down, they glue it on. Once the glue cures, they then remove the straps and their blocks of wood, and then they use fiberglass to fill in around the outside to make a smooth transition. BJ ended up getting one of these, and I'm assuming that's probably what he's going to do, especially after I tell him what a struggle this was. I ended up doing it this way because, one, I'm peculiar, and two, I wanted to remove all of the old damaged material. But also I wanted it to sit into the hull a little bit different than they mostly do. I wanted mine to be back a little bit. I don't know if you guys could tell on the time lapse, but what I ended up doing was I found a reference point and I marked off every inch. I used metric and imperial. Every inch I marked off how many millimeters tall it was. And then I traced that onto the other side and ground the other side so that it was the same. So I have a nice profile here, and it's hard to do with one hand, but I can actually, while it's strapped down at the back, I can now actually push this down into place, and you can see that lines up really nice along there. So what I'm going to do tomorrow, I'm going to get 4 straps. I'm going to strap this down into place. Once it's strapped down into place, I'm going to get some pop rivets and a drill bit. I'm going to drill a bunch of holes through here, through this area and along the side, and I'm going to put some pop rivets in to hold it down at the back, and then along the sides where it meshes up even, while this is held down with the straps, I'm going to pop rivet this together with some aluminum plates. Once I have it pop riveted in place, I can remove the straps, and then I can start removing pop rivets and basically epoxy this in place. Once I've got it epoxied in place so that I'm confident that it's not going to go anywhere, I can then flip it over and basically do some epoxy and fiberglass from the inside as well. This is going to take a lot of tapering. I'm going to end up doing a repair patch that goes all the way back to here. The engine mounts cross somewhere, I think, here and here. So this is a very important area to have strong. So I'm actually going to taper back a lot of this fiberglass, and I'm going to, on the inside, it's going to have probably 8 layers of chop strand and cloth matting. And then on the outside, I'm going to taper from probably here all the way back to here, and yeah, add a bunch of reinforcement. Once the piece is basically fiberglassed in place so that it's nice and secure, I'm then going to, from the other side, I'm actually going to add a bunch of layers. Anyway, I've got a whole lot more grinding and sanding and cutting to do, but the good news is that this thing actually is going to fit in place. When I started cutting away the material, I was kind of second guessing myself, and for quite a while I was wishing that I would have just did what everybody else did, glued and screwed it in place, and then went along afterwards and cut out a bunch of the old material from the inside. But I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be happier with this once it's done. As for how it's going to handle, I'm not 100% sure. It's a little bit, it's going to be basically a little bit shorter than the average one. So it's shorter on the front and shorter on the back. Oh yes, I thought that I should probably tell you guys this too. The sandblasting cabinet that I was supposed to get, turns out that it was a bust. Yeah, I should have known better. It was one of those things where it was like, this looks like a deal that's too good to be true. Well, it was. In my last video, I told you guys that I was going to post some photos of some of my viewers' jet skis, projects, or just rides. And I fully intended to do that. I actually told one of you that I was going to post them in the next video, which would be this video. Unfortunately, it's currently midnight and I would have to do voiceover to post those photos, and Megan's in bed sleeping, and I can't do my editing out here because, well, it's been a very dusty session. Even with the ventilation fan on, I got dust over everything in here, and not only is it not healthy, it's not very good for my computer or anything else. So that's gonna have to wait for another one. I apologize for that. That is going to be the end of this video. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.